The Leave Your Legacy podcast is brought to you by Covenant Workplace Solutions. Covenant is a full-service workplace mental health and wellness partner, helping organizations across the country strengthen the lives of their employees and the families they go home to every day. Your employee assistance program should raise the bar, not simply check the box. And Storyline Multimedia. Storyline is an Iowa City-based media company that creates high-quality video, photo, and audio for local businesses. They produce a number of great podcasts, including this one. If you're interested in sharing your story, please contact them at storylinemultimedia.com. And remember, your story matters. Hello, and welcome to the Leave Your Legacy Show. I'm your host, Kenyon Murray, and today we're going to talk about youth sports and technology. Oh my gosh. If you think back to what we had, now I'm 51 years old. You think about, pretty much growing up in the 80s, early 90s, playing sports and all that kind of stuff. It was like you go out to the churchyard and play football. You go out to the concrete courts and play basketball. You go out to some rinky-dink field and play baseball. We didn't have all the facilities and all the kind of stuff that today's youth have. But more importantly, we didn't have the technology. I think from a technology standpoint, even if you look at just access to see other athletes, access to see sporting events, like the technology has helped most sports become global. Now, most people don't know it, but soccer is the most popular sport in the world. We're a basketball family, so is it really? But anyways, I digress. But there are a lot of benefits to technology in youth sports today. And I think some of the most obvious are just whether it's the training part of it. So you can have a trainer in person, but you also can get virtual training. You think about basketball, the shooting machines, right? You have that kind of technology where you can get up 500 shots in no time based on if you had somebody rebounding every shot that you did when we were young. You have the access to analysis, data analysis. You can go back, watch a basketball game, and you can plot things out. And so technology has really been a benefit to today's sports, whether it's youth or professional. Like technology is one of those things that's not going away. And so how do we embrace technology today? I think as a coach, it gives us a lot of data, right? We can watch video, whether you're using a shooting machine like the NOAA, which tracks your arc and things like that on your shot. Other technology, you can really do like a data or even like averages, like scoring averages at this point in the game. How does a person score in the fourth quarter? What do they do here? Like there's all these different things from a coaching standpoint that we can really focus on. And I think it gives us an idea of where our team, whichever team we're working on, what they need to work on. There's wearable devices now, right? I'm telling you, I've got a wearable device right here. This Whoop, it tracks everything. So I know like my sleep and all these kind of things. And this tracking apparatus is one that we use for recovery, right? So there's a lot of technology out there. And I think in youth sports, there needs to be probably a ceiling on what we use. I think once you get to that level where you're high school, college, or professional athletes, I think embracing technology, it really helps to refine your sport. It helps you refine your skills. It helps you refine your body. But I think when it comes to youth sports, we just need to be a little bit careful on what we do. Now, as a coach, one of the questions that I've gotten a lot about in ways that technology works is when it comes to recruiting. And I say that because there's a lot of recruiting services out there. And what they do is they'll take your information, they'll create videos and all those kind of things. But I think a lot of it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm just going to be honest. I think a lot of the recruiting services that are out there are money grabs. And whether you believe that or not, that's up to you. It's up to your experience. But in my experience, that's been that way. I think one of the best thing that recruiting services do is they help you create a story through video, through publications. I think you can create a real story for college coaches to look at. Now, I think in reality, though, with the videos and stuff that we create, sometimes you can make anybody look like an all-star. Like if you took video of me now, if you cut it the right way, I'd be first team All-American, whatever. But I think, you have to be careful and do your research when it comes to that kind of technology helping your son or daughter. Because we're in a world now where recruiting is so important. When you look at the trends in college basketball with NIL and the transfer portal, I think it becomes more and more apparent that as an athlete, you have to put something together to get recruited. And I think when it comes to youth sports, going into high school, you're starting to see kids create highlight reels at 8 years old, 9 years old, those kind of things. I think that in a way could be very, very detrimental because you're creating a persona through digital resources. You're creating almost like a false sense of security because if someone's 8 or 9 years old and they're killing everybody, where's that player in, 4 or 5 years? Are they still the same player? So even though it's a helpful tool, I think sometimes the digital video technology can be one of those things that can really hamper a player's development. I think the next thing is the same thing is like we become too reliant on technology and maybe we skip some things. When I look back at what I did as an athlete, growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, we had to do the work. We had to be in the gym. We had to grind it out. And a lot of times, I think honestly today, players are pampered. You can drive around any city and see an empty baseball field. You can see an empty basketball court. And I remember growing up, we were always outside. We wanted to be outside. I think that technology and access to things like gyms, facilities, which, ironically, I'm looking to build one. But I think when we look at that stuff, like, I go back to like, man, we used to do this outside. We used to, grind it out. We stay outside all day and this, that, and the other thing. I think now, like, youth sports, they're pampered. And I think it's like one of those things like, when I was younger, we would shovel the snow off of a basketball court to be able to get up shots. And you get a look from kids today like, what? Like, I don't even want to go outside if it's below 40 degrees to play basketball, right? So there's a lot of those things, the technology and those kind of things that we have today that I think take away from just that rawness of, putting in the work, grinding it out, and really like the bumps and bruises, scratches, all those kind of things, like the things that we used to love that we looked at made us tough. Like today, our kids have no idea what that is. But I think it's one of the things too, like how do you embrace it? How do you balance that out when it comes to your kids? And so I think, technology, once again, is a great thing, but it can also be a detriment to your kids' development. So if I say something bad, I have to say something good, right? I think one thing that technology definitely has improved upon is injury prevention and injury rehab, right? I think there's more technology out there. There's more scans and those kind of things. So we can get a better idea of what's going on in the body. Short story, my second year out of Iowa, I was playing basketball in Sweden. It's a developed country, right? So I remember spraining my ankle at an away game. I came down on the back of somebody's foot, rode it really bad. The one thing they didn't have, the arena didn't have crutches and they didn't have an ice machine. So you talk about somebody that just rolled his ankle, probably tore all kinds of ligaments. Like, they didn't have anything there for me to ice my ankle or for me to even walk out. My teammates had to carry me out. So I get back to our city, go home. Next day I go to the trainer and they kind of manipulate a little bit. Oh, it's really swollen. Like, okay, wrapped it up, put some wrap on it. They gave me some crutches and they gave me some pills and said, hey, take these. You'll be, and then come back a couple days. I'm like, that's it? No x-rays, no MRIs, no nothing. So I have this injury on a Sunday. I can finally maybe put some weight on my ankle on a Wednesday, still no rehab. By Friday, they tape me up, I go out and I play. Now, I don't know what they gave me to go out and play with the pain that I had in my ankle, but I did it. fast forward 3 months later, I'm back in the States. Come back to Iowa. I see my orthopedic doctor that I had at the University of Iowa. Like, doc, man, it's not right. They take x-rays. Come back, sitting in the waiting room. Doctor says, when did you break this? And it was my left ankle. And I had actually broken my left ankle when I was in 7th grade. So I said to him, doc, broke it back in 7th grade. What are you talking about? He goes, no, look at this. I actually had a fracture in my ankle, and through MRI, they saw that I tore basically every ligament in my ankle. And I played the rest of the season. So in that instance, technology wasn't available to me and it didn't help. Now, fast forward, obviously things are great now. You know, I can go and get an MRI on my shoulder. I know I got a slap tear in my shoulder. Pretty simple, pretty easy. But I think, you know, when it comes to injury prevention, like technology is just great. I think the way athletic trainers are trained today, the way they're able to, you know, something that we didn't know how to diagnose back in the 90s, like obviously now they can. So technology has been huge for that. It's also huge in the rehab part of it too. I think earlier podcast, I talked about specializing in sports and how athletes are specializing at a much younger age. You're starting to see like Tommy John injuries in junior high and high school kids, and they're getting that surgery because of overuse. But now, even from a rehab and rehabilitation standpoint, the medicine and technology has gotten so much better. ACLs, you don't need the big scar down the middle of your leg now, right? You can do just the scope and have small holes where you insert, and they're able to do that surgery. So I think from that standpoint, when it comes to injury prevention and diagnosis, like technology is phenomenal for our athletes today, young and old. Another way I think technology has been of great benefit to youth athletes is this. Let's just go back to COVID, 2020, and the fact that as a parent of an athlete, you might have been able to go to a sporting event, but regular fans couldn't. So a way that technology has definitely helped the rise of youth sports is just access through streaming services, right? So that has been great. Grandparents that live 3 states away, they can tune in and watch their grandson or granddaughter play in a sporting event. So in that respect, technology has been phenomenal. I think as a spectator, technology has allowed us to be able to, I guess, absorb is a word, but we're able to take in sporting events from all over the world at all different times, whether it's live, it's streaming, it's on demand. Like technology has allowed the world to be able to view sporting events in an unbelievable rate. It's one of those things like now I think streaming services are probably where most companies or even sports franchises make their money. So when you talk about access and those kind of things, streaming services have been a huge blast to technology. Now, the other thing is technology at youth tournaments is also kicking up. The streaming services for basketball tournaments, baseball tournaments, volleyball tournaments, all those things have been huge. And I think what it's done is it's allowed, like I said before, families to be able to see their family members play. It also is a tool that coaches are using now too, because they'll buy these different packages of streaming services to be able to watch youth sports. Because when you think about the athletes that are playing and just the number of coaches can't be in every place to recruit every player that they may be interested in. So having access to streaming services has been huge for coaches when it comes to recruiting. Like I said earlier too, it's a huge tool because now we have content as an athlete that we can send to coaches. And it's all those kind of things that I think definitely have been huge and beneficial when it comes to technology and its influence in youth sports. Technology with streaming also is a huge community builder, right? It's one of those things like if you're a huge fan, you see it now, you can go to a restaurant, establishment that might be a bar or whatever. You can go in there and get any game. I mean, how many times have you gone into a restaurant? It's like, hey, you got all these TVs going on. Can we get this game on this TV? They play on this channel, and that happens. So I think even as spectators, like the technology that's coming to sports today is huge for us. And it's huge for youth as well, because now they see like, it's sometimes an aspiration for them. Like, I want to be on the big screen, but they're getting that at such an early age now, right? You play in some of the gauntlets like Adidas tournaments or Nike tournaments, and then they actually publicize, and you can see that stuff on like ESPN and Fox Sports 1 and those kind of things. So the influence that technology is having on sports at every level is a huge bonus, because now I think that's the way we want to consume it. We also see that it's a detriment to actual attendance in arenas. So though there's a lot of positives, there's a lot of negatives when it comes to technology in sports today. And I think from a youth standpoint, it's just something that I know my boys would love to see themselves on TV. They love to be able to watch their friends play. And then you go to like social media platforms, and now you know what your competition is a lot easier. I talked about it in another episode about how we knew other good players because we went to camps or we read it in a magazine. But now kids can go to Instagram, they can see courtside films, they can see the highlights that they had made on themselves, but then they can also go and see some of their friends or maybe their competitors. And I think in a way, it's good, but also in a way it can be bad just from the standpoint of comparison. But I think it's really cool that you get that recognition through that. And hopefully it's a motivator for those kids. Like, okay, well, I see what this kid does. Maybe I'm not good here. I'm going to work on my game that way. We can always hope and pray that that's what they get back from something like that. But let's be real. Technology has its good and it has its bad. I know I've talked about pluses and minuses when it comes to technology and youth sports, but here's some things I think that we have to look at. Because we talk about a disparity when it comes to participation in sports. And that can be the same thing when it comes to technology. Because there may be a great basketball player, baseball player, football player that may not have access to the technology that's helping another kid become the best version of themselves on a playing field. And so we have to think about that, right? That's a concern. So some players get more opportunity based on their access, and limiting access or access that may be too expensive for a family may hurt that player. And so those are the kind of things we have to think about too. And then is there a way for us to close that disparity? Is there a way that if you're a company that's doing these kind of things, is there a way that you can help an athlete that may not be able to afford the standard price? Maybe there's something with that company like, hey, they give out a scholarship, or hey, if you apply for this grant, then we can, allow you to have the resources that you need to be able to help you perform, become recognized, get recruited, all those kind of things. Those disparities are something that we have to continue to see how we can close the gap. And I think as parents, it's okay to look for other opportunities and other options, but the disparity when it comes to access is one of those things that not only pertains to sports, it pertains to other things as well. Education, the fine arts, even job opportunities. Those are the things that we have to continue to close. And so that's one thing that can be of a concern when you talk about technology and youth sports. Now, I talked about this, and I think this is probably one of the more important things, because when it comes to youth sports, we talked about the pluses and minuses of it. We also talk about young athletes and mental health. And one of the things that technology can do is something that I referenced earlier is you jump on Instagram, you jump on Facebook, you jump on TikTok, and you see another athlete and they're getting all the shine. They're dunking on people, spiking on people, hitting home runs. And as that athlete is watching that, they think, man, I'm not that good. Man, they're so much better than me. Man, I can never do that. And so now this access to technology, which is great in a lot of ways, it becomes something that athletes obsess over. It becomes something that they have anxiety because they want to be that player, and maybe they're not doing what that player is doing when it comes to performance. And now there's more pressure. And now they're comparing themselves to that player. That can be a bad sign for kids. They get anxiety. They think about themselves about how can I do this? Perfectionism. They put so much pressure on themselves to win. And if they don't win, they fail. If they don't match what this player's doing, he had 35 points last night. I got to get 40. And it doesn't happen. What happens to the psyche? So technology in the right hands can be really, really good. But I won't even say in the wrong hands, but with the wrong perception, the wrong mental state, technology can be something that sends an athlete down this rabbit hole. And sometimes that's not good. And we've seen it. We've all seen it. So be careful. As parents, as coaches, the technology that's out there, be responsible with it. Teach your player or your child to be responsible with technology, to use it in a way that's going to enhance their life, enhance their performance, and not be detrimental. So I say this, technology is awesome. It's one of those things that we know is never going away. But remember, let's use it in a way that's going to benefit our athletes. And I think if we do that, our kids can have a lot of success. So remember, technology, it's great. It can be used to enhance performance, enhance knowledge, and do a lot of other great things. But it's important that we don't overuse it. And it's important that with especially young athletes, we continue to keep a holistic view of everything that they're doing. We want to develop them holistically. We want them to excel in every aspect of their life. And sometimes we have to just step back, peel back the layers, and maybe even do away with technology for a while. But it's one of those things that if we use it in a way that will enhance and improve our young athletes' life, experience, and performance, then it can be a great tool to help those young athletes achieve their goals. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, let's keep connected.